What's up, guys? Thanks for joining in today. We got a special one, especially for you beginners out there. I'm going to give you my 5 lures that I think every beginner fisherman should start out with. Some 5 lures that you can try out to get out there and catch some fish with, and then expand on that. So this is just going to be helping build that foundation. As you can probably see by the views on this video, I'm not sponsored by any lure companies or getting any money to say anything good about these type of lures. So thanks for tuning in. Let's get into it. Number 1. Alright, we're going to start off with just the good old Texas rig, guys. Some of you may not know what that is, and that's totally fine. I will hopefully explain it well enough here for you guys to be able to rig up this lure and go out and start casting it. So, what you'll need is you will need some offset hooks. You will also need some sort of plastic. I suggest the culprits. They're one of my favorites, preferably the 7.5 inch, and grape shad is a great color to start tossing around. So how you guys will rig this up is you will stick your offset hook through the tip of your bait here, and then you'll pop it back in about the length of your hook. You'll pop it back in and through, so that way it will be rigged weedless for you guys. So as you're reeling this in, it's going to be going through, and since this hook is going to be in this plastic, you will not be snagging weeds along the way, hopefully. You can also add a weight on the front. I'll show you what that looks like right here. So you can add this weight on the front, and then when you're reeling it in, you're going to be reeling it in, that weight will be hitting down, and this tail will be doing a nice action up above as your weight is kind of bouncing it along the bottom there for you. It also helps sink it faster if those fish are hanging out on the bottom. And the bottom might be around 8 or 10 feet. It'll help it get it down there faster, so you're not sitting there waiting for a weightless Texas rig to sink. But weightless Texas rig is one of my favorites, especially when bass are up spawning or near the shore. You can't go wrong, and that is why it's my first option for you guys as beginners to get used to. Get used to rigging these bad boys up. You can be rigging a lot of them, especially if you start catching fish on them. So that's your first one. Number 2. Alright, good old, just solid crankbait. So there is a wide variety of these. Some guys only fish with crankbait, jerkbait, whatever you want to call them. There are differences in that, but as beginners, I'm just kind of lumping them all together. I suggest a number 3. If you look at it, I also suggest for beginners getting just an original. So they sell suspending, they sell floating, they sell sinking. But if you just get an original, it'll give you a feel for the type of lure. My beginning crankbait color was always a perch. If you are on a body of water that you know you have trout, you could do a little trout color. They also make like tiger shark color and stuff like that. But perch seems to work well. If you know what type of bait fish you have, so whatever type of small fish that are swimming around, if you have little bluegills or little perch swimming around, I would suggest going for that. And so that's another tip there, is to keep an eye out for those type of bait fish, and then in whatever body of water you're fishing, and that can be the color or style of crankbait that you tend to use in that area. It also catches a wide variety of fish on these. You can catch anywhere from northern, musky, walleye I've caught on crankbaits. I've also caught trout on crankbaits, to just your typical largemouth bass, some smallmouth bass. If you get a little crankbait similar to this size, you can even catch crappie and bluegill and stuff like that on them. So with number 2, just good old crankbait. Yes, yes, yes. I'm so pumped about this one. This one, number 3. Some people might be like, no. Don't have a beginner start with some topwater, but I'm telling you guys, if you're a beginner out there and you've never seen a fish freaking come up and just smash it on the top of the water, so that right there in and of itself is why I recommend you to at least get one topwater bait. So there's frogs, there's another one that's called a buzzbait, hence why it's called buzzbait, but it makes vibrations on the water. You can add a little trailer to the back of it there, which would be like a plastic worm crawler of some sort. And then they also make other like jitterbugs or hula poppers that go on the top of the water and make a movement as well. So what I recommend though is maybe just a frog, a black or a actual frog color. Trim those tails. That'll help sure up your bite ratio so that they're not only getting the tail when they come up out of the water to grab it. Flip this around early morning. If you're out there, if you're an early bird, flip this around the banks, reel it in. You kind of want to give some action when you're reeling this in, so you're not just straight reeling it in. You're pulling it, letting it sit for a second so that they can come up and hit it. You're pulling it again, and you'll realize when you're pulling it and you let it sit for that half second to a second, and you see something come up and just freaking munch on this, it's going to be hard to go away from topwater. Even though it doesn't produce that many bites like throughout the year, it's more specific, but when you figure out those times that topwater is hitting, your life will be blown away. It'll be changed. So that is why I recommend at least one lure in your tackle box you have a topwater, so that you can just try it at random times, specifically in the morning. But toss this around some banks, some weeds, some lily pads, and see what happens. But yes, get on some topwater and start smacking them. That's number 3. On to number 4. Number 4 is going to be a MEPS. I suggest for you guys to start out with a number 1 or a number 2. This will catch you anywhere from, I've caught trout on these, crappie on these, largemouth, smallmouth, pike. So another wide variety of species that you can catch on a MEPS. They make all sorts of sizes, a number 3, number 1, number 2, all the way up. I think there's like 5 and 6s. So if you guys like casting and reeling again, this is another one of those type of lures. You cast it out, you reel it in, the spinner spins around the lure, enticing the fish to come in. It's one that consistently produces. MEPS has a well-known name for themselves. They're a great brand. Yeah, this is definitely one that I would highly suggest a beginner fisherman getting into, due to the fact that it can catch a wide variety of species. It's also one that, like, the slower you reel it in, the deeper it'll go. Faster you reel it in, the higher it'll stay. So there's some skill that can be taken into account with that as well. That's another reason why I like this lure. So with number 4, it is the MEPS. Last but not least, to round out your guys' tackle boxes, we have one of my favorites, just a good old jig. So this is just a twister tail that you put on a jig head. These come in multiple sizes, multiple head colors, multiple tail colors. All you need is a jig head and a twister tail or some sort of tail. You run your hook through the center of the worm and you pop it out about midway down, and then you just slide your worm up to the top and push it over the little skirt, and then you're good to go. You're going to be targeting crappie, smallmouth bass. You'll even catch some largemouth on it. But there again, it is just a ultimate fish catching lure. It's one that's still used today by some of the professional fishermen when they're targeting crappie specifically. So you can't go wrong with the chartreuse or a white jig to round out your tackle box. Yes, cool. That's our 5. Those are your 5. Go pick them up. Texas rig, crankbait, frog, MEPS, jig. So for those of you out there, go and get these 5, try them out, hit a body of water near you. If you guys found this video helpful, please hit that like button and that subscribe button. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. So I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, y'all have a good one.